All right, it's time for another unboxing, and well, this should kind of give you a hint to what it is. If not, by the time I have this posted, I'll have a title for this video anyways. So let's get into it. This is something that once I saw it, I was like, wow, I think I really want to get this, and we'll get right into it. I'm going to do this off camera, opening this part of it because it is fairly tight and I need some room to kind of wiggle it off, so give me a sec. Okay, so I got that off back there. Then you got this, and you have I believe this is, see, let me get that out of the way. Inside the top box is instructions and warranty, and you need to download the manual. Although, why is there instructions in here? It's funny. There's actually instructions here, but I guess if you need to download the manual and register it, you go there. And I believe they come with 2 years. Okay, so in case you didn't know, first year worldwide warranty, the second and third year, that was 3, only valid for service in the United States. Well, I did get it from a US authorized dealer, I guess. So specifically from Topper, FYI. And they just got this in. I told them, I went there about maybe a week or 2 before, sometime in, now it's first week or so of October. So I went there about, when did I take that time off? Sometime in mid or early September. Just, yeah, and I went there with a friend and we're checking things out. And this had just been announced too, not too long before, and I was hoping they would have it so I could check it out, but they didn't. And I just told the guy, hey, give me a call. I'm interested once you get it in. And they did. And the next day I went over and checked it out, and I had a strong suspicion I'd probably pick it up because, let's get into this. Oh, this takes, actually, this is also hard to open, so I'm going to do this off camera real quick. Okay, so at least lift it up this much, and the rest will come off a lot easier. And there we go. And this is what you get. It's a different box than your typical Seiko Prospex line, I think. I don't recall ever seeing one specifically like this. And it comes wrapped in this Seiko pouch. And actually I did, this is not a fresh unboxing because I did do it at the AD and they helped sized it for me. And so actually the extra links are in there. Wristwatch check before. I am on my Tag Heuer Aqua Racer Solograph in titanium. Really cool watch. Really love this. So much so, well, I'll explain something in a later video regarding me and Tag Heuer, at least the ones I've owned. But we'll get into that some other time. So it comes in this, and which most Seikos don't usually come in that. And there we go. This is the SLA077. Off the top of my head, I don't recall what the other reference number is. I guess the JDM model. Yeah, I'm sure I have it somewhere, but if I do, I'll post it somewhere there so you know what the other reference number is. But yeah, since I got this in the United States, they go with the SLA numbers. Comes with this pillow, and we'll just unwrap this. And so yeah, this came in this style and the one that's all black. They both look great, and they both have like this, you'll see in a moment, like a textured dial. I will put this with my other goodies, extras. And I went with the white dial. Well, it's not actually white. It's more of a opaline dial. It's got a bit of a sheen or shimmer to it, you know, like it's slightly silvery. And if you, let me zoom up to it. Maybe can see the texture. You can see what I mean. It's not straight up white. If it was, it would look closer to the indexes, but just compare that to just the silver metal. That's straight up silver. You can, in comparison, and especially in contrast to the black, it basically looks white. I just wanted, I really liked the way this looked, and I've been a fan of like the Marinemaster. There's a number of different Marinemasters, but this kind of style, I guess most people refer to this as the Marinemaster 300, or this is actually the Heritage. What does it say here? 1968 Diver. At least that's what it says on the bottom part of. I don't think there's anything important here, but on the bottom part of this, it's got cut off. It looks like a Prospex Luxe. The Luxe is the more higher end side, right, of the Prospex line. It does kind of border into a bit of Grand Seiko territory. Not quite all the way in there, and not quite in there actually, because in terms of price wise, but it makes you think, well, for a little, about as much, if not a little bit more, you could go Grand Seiko. But I wouldn't do their sports watches, just because they tend to be just a bit too big, in my opinion. Their dress watches, or I'm talking about sport divers mostly. Even the chronographs are a little bit, to me, they seem a little bit bigger than they should be. But anyways, there we go. And yeah, if you follow me, or if you've seen enough of my videos, I've been through a number of white dial, black bezel divers. It's something I've been pursuing for some time. Like when I got back into watch collecting, and my first Seiko mod was with an SKX, and I built it off of, because I thought back to my first luxury diver, and just luxury watch in general, which was a Tag Heuer. It's a diver. The reference number is really long. It begins with like a WD. It was quartz, but hey, it was mine, and it was my first watch, and that's why I kind of went back to Tag, just because that got me into sort of officially into watch collecting in a way, although I wasn't really heavily collecting back then. That was actually my only watch for 12 years, and somehow I lost it. After I moved in to a new home, and I was just doing some work in the garage, I think, epoxying the floor and repainting the walls white, because they were just like gray and it just didn't reflect light. It was really dark. So during the first 2 weeks of doing these things, I think I somehow misplaced the watch. I set it down, and I fear I might have wrapped it up. It got mixed into the garbage after we were working on the house and tossed out. I don't know. That's my assumption, because there's nowhere in the house to be found, and I know I didn't leave it anywhere else. But anyways, fast forward, what was that, back in 2007, and yeah, it's almost 20, well, it's now 2024, not quite 20 years, but quite a long ways. And between then, more within the last 5 years at least, maybe a tad more, I've been wanting to, when I thought about that watch, and I've been wanting to get something like that back, I went through everything else but that watch, almost. Oh, pretty much. I made my first Seiko mod roughly based on that, and a Grand Seiko dive watch, which actually had like an opaline dial, which I owned before, the SBGX015 or 115. I think it's the 115. And you might have seen it from a previous video. That was really cool, and that was like something I really wanted after, when I was doing my research, but it was too much at the time. And then eventually, finally, several years later, then I eventually just pulled the trigger and found a decent example, and I bought it. But it always felt a little too big. It's just shy of 44 millimeters, I think. It depends on where you measure it, but it's not a full 44 or so. It's a little bit under, but it wears very full. I don't have a picture of it, but you refer to it, or if you look it up, later on after this video, you can see what I mean. The bezel was a bit thicker or wider, depending on how you even see it. And definitely there's a number of numbers on there that were very bold. And the case too, it was very, it had, you know, it didn't really actually totally appeal to me. The shape of the case wasn't particularly anything special, but it had pretty broad lugs. So the case really wore kind of big, and it also had 22 millimeter, bracelet and all that, plus the white dial and just the way that bezel was done. It made it feel a lot more bold and big. It was within reason for me to wear. It didn't look like crazy on me, but I always felt like it could be. I wish it was a little hair smaller, but I had to try it. It's something that I always wanted to get, and I did. And I feel, after letting it go, at least still feel privileged to have at least had a chance to have owned it and, enjoyed it for some time before I did that. And so anyways, now this one is when they came up with this, it's like, yeah, this is, because I sold almost all my Seikos. Crazy, especially if you've seen how many I've been through. It's like, and I love Seiko, actually, despite some of their quirks and QC issues, for the maybe diehard fans, whatever, we just put up with it. We might bitch a lot, but we still, if we like it enough, we'll still get it, I think. And so that was the case here. Let's see if I can get this started. I could wind it. There we go. And, but yeah. And so I was thinking, because I like it so much, I always thought I should always have a Seiko back in the collection, at least one. And they're good at so many things. They've done dive watches, chronographs. They're one of the first automatic chronographs that hit the market. What else is there? They actually do pretty decent, dress watches. But yeah, I think definitely one of their strongest points, and they have a lot of iconic models is within their divers line. And these ones that are roughly based around the Marinemaster style, it's always been one that appealed to me. I just think the case is really nicely designed, and that's the other thing too that was different from my Grand Seiko. It's like the dial and stuff the dial mainly was very Grand Seiko Diver. That's just an established look that they had with their handset and the way they did the markers, and it carried on to this day, I think. There hasn't been much change in that basic dial, design and layout and all that. But the case felt a little generic. The crown's at the 3. From the top view, it looked a little bit Omega Seamaster-ish. It looked almost like it had twisted lugs, but it's just the way it was cut. But when you really look at it, it didn't do that. And something about the size of it, the boldness of the bezel, it felt a bit like a sumo, which they can be cool, but I never really liked them. They always felt a little too big, and my head thinks of the word bloated. Yeah. So anyways, but I always like this. I think at about 42.6, I think it's under 43 millimeters. It's very similar to an SKX size, right? I think they're around 42 and a half, more or less. And the thickness, this is about 13.4 or 6 or 7, somewhere around. It's about 13 and a half, more or less. And I believe the SKX is about there too. The SKX, I believe, will have shorter lug to lug. I forget what this one is. I'll do it in an actual review later. But still, Seiko does their magic with making most of their watches, but with a lot of their divers, they seem to be dimensionally, they seem like they would wear a bit larger, but they, because of that, but when you actually, put it on and you see how it's cut and just everything, the finesse and some of their sculpting, and it just usually wears at least one, maybe two, up to 2 millimeters or so smaller than you think this dimensions might show up on your wrist, due to a lot of things. But anyways, yeah, this is one that I've been thinking about since it came out, and I was like, I want to get a white dial black bezel in my collection. I tried many, as you will see from my past. That Grand Seiko was probably the last one that I had, and after that, I didn't really have anything. Prior to that, I had like a NTH sub, uh, you know, the one with the full on white dial. It looks like a Tudor Pelagos actually. It was really cool, but then there's some details that didn't fall into that. And I'm getting out of that phase of homage watches. I have been for a little bit, I think. Nothing wrong with them, but you know, I think it's, for some of us, that's part of the journey, is to experience those homage watches, because you can't, maybe you can't, or you just didn't want to pay what those, what, you know, the real, you know, full luxury model that those are based off of. You don't want to pay that kind of money, or you just don't have it, and you just want to see how it is before possibly you might eventually commit to the real thing. Yeah, so I tried that, and yeah, so many, and to the point where now I just, yeah, I sort of sometimes like it, but then I know that, yeah, I don't want to go there, because I know usually end up keeping it. So I wanted to keep with something more original, and this is totally Seiko. Yes, it's not completely, there's definitely not a one-to-one match to the vintage reference that this is said to be kind of homaging, I guess. Within an homage within its own, you know, brand or family is fine, I think. But yeah, it's a cool modern reissue, and I think the smaller size at 42.5-ish works for me. And I'll show it to you on my 7-inch wrist. And just for size comparison, I'll take this off. It's not a diver, although basically it's modeled off of their diver line, and you can see the difference. This is a 40 millimeter. This is 42 and a half or so. But you look at it, it's actually not that big a difference. You know, this has the black bezel. This is kind of matched to the case, but if you really look around the outside, there's not a huge difference in its, at least from this view. From the side, definitely, because this has a solar quartz movement, so it's definitely thinner. But you know that this part will sink into your wrist, and the way this is cut recedes away, so you're really left with this thin side profile, and maybe the top of that polished bevel. That's mostly what you'll see of the case of this watch. And so if you look at that, it's actually about the same as this, if not actually technically a little bit thinner in some ways, although the bezel is a bit thicker than this one. But you kind of play between the two dimensions. They basically should wear and look about the same on wrist. Both are 20 millimeter lugs. Yeah, but I'll put this down for a second. I'll show this on my wrist. Let me back up a little bit. You might get a little bit more distortion because it's gone to a more wide angle lens, but we'll see what I can do with that. This has been sized again for my 7-inch wrist. Let's get this out of the way. And it does have that stupid dive extension here, which I'm not a fan of, but I'll live with it for now. I actually have the Marinemaster, 300 clasp on its way, so I'm going to replace that. I'll probably have to get some links back in here, most likely, because this is going to be gone, so I need something to kind of fill in that part a bit. But that has that, you flip up this part of the clasp, and you can, when you go far enough, it'll ratchet out. I like that. You don't have to take off the watch. I'm not going to use the full extension ever because, unless I plan to actually go diving, but which I probably won't. I just will use that as like a little micro adjust. Sure, it leaves a gap, but I've done this on my Grand Seiko because it has the same class system, and all I do is just do that, and then like if it swells, I usually let it go about 1 or 2 clicks out, and that's plenty. It'll just be temporary, but you'll have a little bit of a gap there, but then it has that ratchet and that piece. It's not, you won't see like it getting really thinner or see through it in some ways. so it's not, wouldn't be too bad. Again, just temporary for some relief, but then when my wrist goes back to normal, not as swollen, then I can always ratchet it back down to be tighter again without, again, taking off the clasp, which is it's a detail and feature which I really like. So yeah, this doesn't do that, but when I get the Marinemaster clasp in, it should. And I definitely have a number of strap options with this. It's going to be a really cool strap monster. And let's see here. I'm going to take the camera off of the stand here so I can pull back with the this out of the way. Pull back with the camera with the more of the telly kind of angle field of view, so it has less distortion. You can get it a more true proportion of how this might wear if you have about a 7-inch wrist. And of course this wears so nicely. And I tested this fit basically with like the Marinemaster 200 with the GMT movement. They had like one of the more popular, the green one, at the store. And so I tried that, and that worked great. And so this is basically pretty much nearly this identical dimensions, and so I figured this should work pretty well. And I really like it. It has the distinct Seiko design. I wanted a crown to be offset to the floor, though I do think that I wish they would really put it at the floor, or more so than this, basically like this 345 position, which is typical for most of Seiko's divers. But when you go really in the high end, like I think even above 3,000, that's when for some reason they start to make it more aligned with the 4 o'clock. You look at some of the other SLAs, they will have the crown closer down to the 4, which looks, aesthetically better, because it's just drawing a line from the center of the dial through the index of 4th through the center of the crown. That just looks better, and I think it's better offset because that is even more out of the way. But this will do. I don't mind. And I don't mind the 4 o'clock, 4:30 date window. I think it's pretty inconspicuous. They don't have any frame. It's just kind of a simple cutout, and just enough to tell the time if you need it, while maintaining the overall better dial symmetry. You got a full set of indexes. You don't have a missing or cropped one at the 3 o'clock, which is where you typically find the date. They don't do too many 6 o'clock dates as far as I recall, but you might have the same kind of issues if they replace or try to fit a date window in over one of the areas that have an index already. So I checked the alignment of this. The Re-Hot seems to be pretty darn good. The chapter ring, and especially the bezel. They only had 5 or so, but then this was the first one I checked out under the glass when I got into the store. But when I went to check out, they brought out 2 new ones, and I wanted to check those out too. They just let me because to make sure the alignment. And it's funny because I say, well, when I say that I wanted to check the alignment, I say, well, the sales rep says, yeah, that's kind of mostly in the past. It's like, I don't think so, because like, especially at this price point, you would think it should be. But the other Marinemaster that came out with the one with the horizontal banding, it looks kind of like an updated 62 Moss, but it's like it says Marinemaster, but it's 200 meters. And it also has a this has the AL movement, 35, I'm not mistaken, which is what I prefer. I didn't want to go with one of these other Seikos in the Prospex line, like in the 1,000 or just north of that has the 6R. I had bad experience with 6R movements. I'd rather do one with the 6L, because it is basically, from what I understand, it's actually not a 6R. It's actually more of an 8L, but it's just a more slimmed down version of it. That's why they can get it into a smaller, or at least a thinner package, according to most sources that I've seen talk about that. So what was I saying? Yeah, so it has 8L movement. I don't mind the date over here. I think it works for me, just out of the way. And it is kind of color matched, because the dial has that a little bit of a silver kind of shimmer or wash over it. The date window, from what I can tell, it actually is silvery. It's not white, so it actually does match pretty well. And yeah, I like the distinct style of this, and I think this will be a key. Oh yeah, with the alignment. So yeah, I tested one of the new ones, and then the first one I tested was bezel, of course, and that one was definitely off by a bit. Like if you were to turn it and then get it lined up at the 12, you know, usually turn it back to where it kind of settles into a more, you know, it can't back up anymore or turn back. That's, you know, that's a good place for it to be stopped. And it was off. So then if I moved it one more click over, it would be past the marker. So that was no good. And then the second one I tried, I guess technically that would have been the third, because the first one was the one at the window under the glass in the display case. But the third one I tried, they had a look at, the bezel was aligned perfectly. That was really nice. But I also tested the hands to make sure that at the top of the hour, when the minute hand's up at 12, the hour hand should be directly pointing at the hour marker. That's something that you'd be surprised will be slightly off, and it was on that third one. It was off by, like, if I were to say, I think it went just past the marker, the hour marker, by about 2 or 3 minutes. So yeah, so the minute hand was like at, say, if it was going to go towards 6, it was like 5:59, right? If the second hand was right about at the 58 mark or so, seconds before it hits 58 or 57, before it hits the top of the minute, that's when the hour hand would be actually aligned directly with the marker. So by the time the second hand actually is at the top of the minute, no, actually I take that back. So at the 57 or 58 minute mark, that's when the hour hand will be pointed directly at the marker. So when the minute hand is at the top of the hour, then the hour hand we had just passed it, and you can see that, at least I could see, that was off by just like a 1 degree or even a half or something, but I can see it wasn't perfect. So that was no go. So I went back to this one, because I did test this earlier when I was first trying it on. I was doing all the checks, and because I was assuming I might end up with the display model anyways, because it was all wrapped up and still pretty nice. And that one was perfect, and the alignment is pretty perfect. I think if I backplate it, you know, to where it would actually stop, it would be a little bit under the directly at the top of the minute. But if I was just turning it and let's let it settle, it sits still comfortably centered at the top of the minute. So, you know, at the top of the dial, I guess. And so yeah, it's aligned good for me. Let me put this back on. Here you can hear the very typical Seiko. It's kind of soft dampened. I always say that it has like a slight delay to the click. Like as soon as you turn it, it's just like a split second right after, then it starts clicking like. If you can hear that. I don't know, but it's nice. It's smooth. It's got enough resistance. I do feel that the other two models that I tried out when I was testing the bezel, it felt like surprisingly stiffer. Like it felt a little harder to turn for some reason, but maybe they were still brand new and have not been moved yet since they came out of the factory. So there's that. But this one rotates nicely. And I'll show you what I mean here at the top of the minute. So if I just did that, and it does seem to be aligned right, but if I really pull it back, it could be slightly behind, but if I just, when I just turn it and I just leave it there, and it holds pretty well just in that position, it's centered. So it's not like the other one where if I backplate it, it's enough where if I start going forward again, it'll actually just click over and you'll be past it. And that doesn't do it here. But anyways, it's worked out. So I'm glad they were able to let me check it out and make sure I found the quote perfect one, which is hard to say with Seiko. There's no 100% perfect one, I think, but this is about as close as I could get. So it works. And I think this is lovely. I look forward to trying this on my daily routine soon and showing off the different strap options I have for it. I think I got some pretty good ones, and yeah, can't wait to show that off and enjoy this. And we'll see how the movement is. So it has 8035. Still have the sticker on the back. And these are not limited edition, which is great. So yeah, I changed the class. We'll see. They'll come in maybe a few days or about a week. I got another rubber strap from Uncle Seiko, and I'll show that when I get that in. This was another option. Great that has drill through lug holes here. And yeah, this crown isn't signed. I wonder if maybe there might be some other either OEM part or a decent aftermarket one that has like a Seiko S or Seiko written on the side here. That might be a nice upgrade to this, but that's not really that big a deal to me, to be honest. I'm not bothered by it not being signed. It would be cool to, if I could make it, have one sometime, but I'm not pressing for that right now. I just enjoy this for mostly how it is. Well, I'll share some more when I get more. So thanks for watching. I probably have a lot more to say, but this has gone on way too long. I'll say about editing it, but I probably won't. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your watches. I sure will look forward to enjoying this one.